refuse for politics, allowing constituents, children, and families to continue drinking toxic water from their taps. I'm still waiting on a reply to an email I sent her, begging for help on this matter back in 2022. And she has refused to simply show up for the people of Wisconsin. If I didn't show up for work, I would be out of a job. Why is it that we have
Excuse me, we're just checking height here.
For elected officials who are supposed to be representing us? Better. Before it comes, here it comes.
Yeah.
You're shorter than me, so you come too. Before I turn it over to our last speaker, I just wanted to state the obvious here that people in Peshtigo, Marinette, and Rhinelander are tired of the do-nothing attitude by the Republican representatives in Madison. This is not a partisan issue. If you disagree, tell me which political party wants poison in their water.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today as Wisconsin Democrats kick off our statewide public accountability tour of my Republican colleagues on the Joint Finance Committee. For those of you who don't know me, I'm State Senator LaTanya Johnson. I represent the 6th Senate District, and I have the privilege of serving on the Joint Finance Committee. We're here today not only to highlight the dereliction of duty of my Republican colleagues on Joint Finance, but also to turn a spotlight to the alternatives, the opponents of these do-nothing representatives who have your best interest at heart. Right now, across the state of Wisconsin, there are thousands of families who cannot turn on their tap water and drink safely from it. Here in northeast Wisconsin, the epicenter of this crisis, thousands have to rely on bottled water to drink, to cook, to shower, and to live. It is inconsolable that despite all of these issues, the legislature refuses to act, especially when there are multiple members of Joint Finance that calls this area home. They should know all too well that the families who reside here cannot wait another minute for clean drinking water. Just 2 weeks ago, Governor Evers called a special meeting of the Joint Finance Committee to release $125 million that has to be set aside to help these families and combat the crisis that not one single Republican showed up for. Not one. Green Bay, if you cannot expect your state senators and your state representatives to show up for you in Madison when it counts, they shouldn't be expected to have you show up for them in November. It's that simple. And now I would like to introduce our next state senator from Green Bay, Jamie Wall.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Senator Johnson, for your remarks. It's great to have you here in Green Bay this morning. My name is Jamie Wall. I am the Democratic candidate for the new 30th State Senate District here in Central Brown County. Now, I just wanted to take a minute to emphasize just how crazy the situation is. Communities in northeast Wisconsin and around the state have been struggling with PFAS pollution in groundwater for the past decade. Now, last year, the governor and the legislature, in an all-too-rare bipartisan agreement, set aside $125 million to help those affected communities address and treat the polluted groundwater. Now, unfortunately, Republicans in the legislature would not release those funds without limiting the ability of the DNR to hold the responsible polluters to account. So when the governor called a special meeting a week or two ago to release those funds that the legislature had already approved, the Republicans of the Joint Finance Committee couldn't even be bothered to show up. Now, the stakes in Marinette, in Peshtigo, are simply too high for Republicans in the legislature to take their toys and go home. We need elected leaders in Madison who want to work together for the benefit of the people who sent them there. And that's the kind of state senator I pledge to be if the voters here elect me in November. So I'd now like to introduce Andy Rich, who's the candidate in the 12th State Senate District, which includes a couple of the affected communities. Her opponent is one of the members of the Joint Finance Committee who didn't show up for a constituents. So, Andy, there you go.
Thanks, Jamie.
Sure, cheers.
Thank you for that introduction, Jamie. My name is Andy Rich. I am running for State Senate District 12 against former chair of the very committee we are gathered here to talk about today. Senator Mary Felskowski has been asleep at the wheel for far too long. She is standing on the sidelines as northern Wisconsin continues grappling with a water crisis. She has refused to put people over politics, allowing constituents, children, and families to continue drinking toxic water from their taps. I'm still waiting on a reply to an email I sent her begging for help on this matter back in 2022. She refused to simply show up for the people of Wisconsin. If I didn't show up for work, I would be out of a job. Why is it that we have different standards for elected officials who are supposed to be representing us? Before I turn it over to our last speaker, I just want to state the obvious here, that people in Peshtigo, Marinette, and Rhinelander are tired of the do-nothing attitude by the Republican representatives in Madison. This is not a partisan issue. If you disagree, please tell me which political party wants poison in their water. Most of my district is conservative Republican voters, and with Felskowski in office, none of us are being represented. So I'm here to tell you that if we can't get them to address this crisis, then we need to show them the door come November. And with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Lori Palmieri. Thanks, Lori. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you to Senator Johnson and Jamie for being here today. My name is Lori Palmieri, and I have the honor of representing Oshkosh in the 54th Assembly District in Madison. And serving the state legislature, I have a front row seat to Republicans' petty games that put their own interests ahead of Wisconsin. Sadly, withholding the funding to fight PFAS for 300 days as of today isn't where legislative Republicans started failing Wisconsinites, and it won't be where they stop. This session alone, Republicans refused to fund child care counts to keep our child care industry afloat. They went home for the year rather than pass postpartum Medicaid expansion to keep new moms and babies healthy. And they let a proposal to legalize medical marijuana die before it reached a vote. Just this month, they've refused to release funding for rural health care and to fight the opioid epidemic. This hits too close to home for me, as I know too many people in recovery fighting for their lives and families that could really use some help. My community has been hit hard by opioids. Those funds could help with harm reduction, save lives, and connect fragmented families that have been devastated. You know, Republican inaction is disappointing, but not surprising. For 14 years, Republicans in the legislature have ignored, they have totally ignored what's best for Wisconsin, and our communities are paying the price. Like our other speaker said this November, we all have a choice when we head to the ballot box. Do we want more of the same, more of the obstruction, more of the disconnect we've come to expect from Wisconsin Republicans, or do we want something different? Wisconsin Democrats, like those behind me today, are ready to get to work to finally tackle the challenges Republicans have overlooked this past decade. And we can't wait to get to work for you, Wisconsin. With that, we'll take questions.
Folks, have any of you heard from any of the current members of the JFC as to their reasoning as to why they weren't there?
No, we haven't. But to be honest, we anticipated that would happen. It seems that everything that seems to be of crucial importance to Wisconsin residents is not as important to them. I know in Milwaukee we have over 77,000 individuals that are connected to lead pipes, and that continues to be a constant concern for us, especially for those homes that have children under the age of 6. And we know how toxic lead is. And it's not just a crisis in Milwaukee, it's not just a crisis here, it's a crisis around the state, and we haven't seen them act.
If your party doesn't get the... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was told that the reason that they didn't show up was because they wanted Evers to approve a bill that they had just passed that he vetoed. And truth be told, we are so grateful that he vetoed that bill, because the bill itself did nothing to actually release the $125 million, which they're claiming it did. It did not. And on top of that, the bill gave even more restrictions to the already limited powers of the DNR to help us address this crisis. So we've already got an arm tied behind our back. They wanted to tie the other, and then they want to point the fingers at Evers as the problem when the bill did nothing to release the $125 million in the first place.
If your party doesn't get the majority in this fall's elections, is there a way to avoid this whole gavel in, gavel out dance that we've been seeing back and forth down there?
I don't know. Look, what happens in November is up to the voters, but if the Republicans do retain majorities, that's their prerogative. But my hope is that if we get more people in Madison who are trying to play, between the 40-yard lines instead of at the extremes, we're going to see some more moderation and hopefully cooperation. But to do that, it's going to take reducing those huge unaccountable majorities and sending some people like myself to Madison who want to work together to do the people's business.
And I would add to that certainly I have had conversations and done some work with Republicans across the aisle. There are some who want to work together more, but leadership is throwing up barriers. I mean, I've heard of some specifics, don't know if they're true, that they're threatened with primaries, or they're threatened with losing staff if they work with Democrats. So certainly there are some folks who want to work together, but leadership's holding them back. And I agree that even if we were not to get the majority, which I'm pretty confident we will, there's going to be much more working together.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Wonderful.